Okay, hello everybody. Today we are in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 in the Cessna Skyhawk. We have a 16 nautical mile virtual reality flight from Peter O'Knight to Plant City. Both of those are pay-aware airports. I'll also give you an update about my real-life flight lessons and tell you about a Quora question that I answered about flight simming that went a little viral. Let's hop into the pilot seat and get started. My real-life flight lesson update, unfortunately, is very anticlimactic. So after being on this great pace of getting 3 lessons a week with the same instructor and same airplane, we got my medical certificate, we got my landings looking really good, we're talking about soloing, everything was falling into place, and I needed to change instructors. And the reason was my instructor's schedule changed and I couldn't make his new time slots because they fell during my working hours. So now I've got a new instructor. They've been pretty booked for this month. It's hard to get time with them, and I need to get some time with them before they're ready to sign off on me soloing. So I'm kind of in a holding pattern. I've actually only had 2 lessons this month, which is a bummer because I was doing 3 a week, and now, we're 2/3 of the way through the month with only 2 under my belt. One of those 2 lessons was in the Skyhawk N, pictured here. Normally I fly Skyhawk M's, which is what most of the Cessnas are at my school, and you can see it has a digital display. And I'll tell you, in the simulator, flying with kind of cool digital displays like this is fun. In real life, I really didn't like it. I just sort of ignored it and wanted to use the steam gauges because that's what's familiar to me. Hopping into the sim, we're departing from Vertical Sim's Peter O'Knight Airport. It's a seaside airport that's near Tampa, and if we hop into the drone camera, I'll give you a quick tour of it. So you can see we've got some nice texture work, both on the objects and the ground. Vertical Sim always does a great job for it. But actually where the airport really shines is all of the detail that he put into the nearby marina that's right across the bay. So without the airport, this is bare pretty much with a boat or two, but this looks terrific. If you zoom in with the drone camera, it looks like the type of place you just kind of like to explore and hang out in the sim. So, really nice job. Alright, we're in virtual reality here, and I'm wearing the Rift S on my head. We'll open up the checklist and start going through it. This is the custom livery that's a recreation of the real-life aircraft that I fly in my flight lessons with the same tail number. Okay, our pre-flight is complete. Our electronics are all off. We can see that our avionics are off. Our fuel selector is to both. And our fuel shutoff valve, go down here and push that guy in. Go to the next page. Okay, we'll crack open the throttle. I've got actual controls for that. Go down, get the mixture to cut off. Battery on, after making sure the prop is clear. Beacon is on. Parking brake, we'll make sure that's set. Mixture to full rich. We'll get the fuel pump on for 3 to 5 seconds. Turn that off. Then we'll lean the mixture. There we go. Head over to the ignition and start it up. Get the mixture into rich after it starts up. And then we're going to adjust the throttle for 1000 RPM. While we're doing that, we'll make sure that we have oil pressure. That looks good. And our oil temp will come up as it warms up. We'll get the alternator on. We'll verify that the alternator light has turned off. It has. Next we'll go over here and get bus 1 and bus 2 for avionics. So until you turn those on, your headset won't work. So at this point, we do a quick check to make sure that mic's working, and if you're flying with somebody they could hear you, you could hear them. While the avionics are booting up, we'll turn on the transponder, and there is a glitch here. I don't know if it's something I did with the livery or what's going on, but the transponder doesn't turn on. So we'll pretend it works. And we'll also adjust the directional to the compass. Now in real life, there's a startup sequence for the Garmin, and you saw it deflected the needles on the course deviation indicator. It will do that and they will stay there, and you need to confirm that they've moved the way that's displayed on the screen. Alright, now the way to quickly put in our airport info is to go to the nearest page and then just select our airport. The frequencies will be there, you can select them and then just click on them. And that is a little bit hard to do in VR. You have to, it's actually the real motion. You have to push in on the knob, but sometimes it registers and sometimes it doesn't when you push it on it. In real life, when my instructor was showing me how to use the Garmin, the main thing that he wanted to show me was how to get to the nearest page, press the direct to, and dial in the frequencies. That's about all we messed with the Garmin. Alright, as we're getting these all set up, I'll open up ForeFlight and take you through the flight brief. So we are flying in a straight line from Peterborough Night to Plant City. We are underneath the Tampa Bravo. The shelf starts at 1200, so we're going to stay at 1200 or lower until we get to the outer shelf, then we'll climb to 2000. I will bet in real life people get Bravo clearances all the time, and that's what I would do, because flying essentially at pattern altitude for 5 miles doesn't seem like a great idea in the event of an engine failure. Most of the stuff on the remaining pre-taxi checklist are things that you're going to check while taxiing, like different gauges are actually moving the way you expect them to. We will turn on the taxi light and the landing light. It does have you turn on the nav lights, but really you only turn those on if you're flying at night, so I leave those off typically for daytime flight. Alright, we will close up the checklist and we'll get ready to taxi. I've got a bunch of guys all around me here, so I'm going to have to move the airplane ahead a bit to get past them. Peterborough Night traffic, Skyhawk 07 Quebec, taxi from the ramp to runway 4, hold short, Peterborough Night. I'm betting they abbreviate that in real life, since Peterborough Night is a little bit of a mouthful to spit out in CTAF calls. Alright, as I'm taxiing here, I could feel something's a little screwy with my rudder pedals, and I think the sensitivity on the left one is different than on the right, but I should really stop and fix it, but I'm just going to roll with it, and we'll see what happens. I tried to do a virtual reality flight using just VR controls, so actually gripping the virtual yoke with the VR controller and gripping the virtual throttle with the other VR controller. I thought it would be kind of cool, and maybe, you know, I'd have finer control. It was a disaster. It was exactly what you would expect. It wasn't too bad to hold your hand in the air, right, and pretend you were holding the the virtual yoke. The throttle definitely got tiring, but what was particularly a disaster was attempting to use the trim wheel. You would click it with the controller and move it like a fraction of a millimeter up, and it would jump 8 notches of trim up, and suddenly the airplane would just nosedive towards the ground, and you're pulling back on the yoke as much as you can deflect it to keep it from crashing. So yeah, I gave up on that. We're back to using physical controls. Alright, you can see I skipped the run up there just to get this show on the road, because VR flights are a little bit longer since I can't do that short 2-minute musical montage you usually see in my flights. Okay, we got 4 on the runway, 4 on the compass, 4 on the directional, looking good, full throttle, looking for 55 to rotate. Airspeed's alive, gauges are in the green, and we are up. And I am trying to pitch for 70. We want to climb out 70 to 80 here. A little bit fast.
Transport 3590 heavy Tampa approach, turn right direct 50, doing a localizer, set up maintain 3000.
Alright, just coming over to the other side of the bay, we've got Hooker's Point off to our left here. Then we've got our heading dialed into the heading bug, so we're going to maintain 077 and fly straight. We've got a couple VFR references that we'll keep an eye on. What's nice about the Rift S is I can read everything nice and clear. So can read the Garmin fine here. We'll zoom out so we can see where we are along our massive 16-mile trip. Interstate 75 goes north-south, and 618 runs parallel to it, so we're going to have to cross 75. That'll be a waypoint, and if we get lost, we can just parallel to 618, and that should take us pretty close to the field. And if we look down there we go. That's 75 and 618. So you're probably wondering about the Quora question. So someone on Quora asked if you had 10,000 hours of flight sim experience, could you land an aircraft on the first try with no assistance? And when I saw that, I thought, if ever there is a Quora question for me, this is it. I was like to my wife, okay, I'm going to be busy for a while here, and I just start typing furiously on the keyboard. Because that's like literally what I did earlier this year. You know, I've been flight simming for years, and I thought I would like to try it for real, so I did my discovery flight. And when you heard about my discovery flight, you know, I talked about the differences between sim and reality, and at the end of that discovery flight, I tried to land with instruction, you know, with a very experienced CFI instructing me, and I could not do it. It was too hard. I tried, you know, so in the game here, yeah, I can ace landings, but in real life, not only couldn't I do it on the first time, but it took me a lot of effort, like a lot of lessons to be able to work through landings. It was very hard, and it was a lot of hard work. So I wrote my answer a couple days ago, you know, hit enter, and then just check back periodically to see how I was doing. It's at 125,000 views, like 3,000 upvotes, something like 120 comments. I lost count. I can't keep up with the comments, you know. I was trying to reply to them as they came up, and now there's just too many. So yeah, it's crazy. A lot of people were really curious for the answer to that. And for the sim crowd, you know, I will tell you, just because I couldn't do it doesn't mean that I'm saying nobody in the world can do it. I'm just saying that I found landing very hard, and it took me a lot of practice to be able to really land the plane. Okay, up ahead we've got the field in sight, so this worked out pretty well. Right on track. So we're going to get a little bit closer, and then we're going to turn and enter the left downwind on the 45. And in VR, this is really what it's like in real life. I commented on this in my discovery flight. When I did my discovery flight, I'd flown in VR in that actual field before, and when we were in the downwind and flying the pattern, it looked the same. Like the height and the size of the field and our spacing from the field was exactly like it was in virtual reality in the simulator. And it sort of helped me rehearse for what it would be like in real life, because it's like, I totally expected to be here. This is what it looked like when I flew it. So as we're flying along here, I'm waiting to get a beam of the numbers. And once we do, I'm going to reduce the throttle and put in my first notch of flaps, and then I'm going to capture my airspeed. So I want to be 70 knots at this point of the pattern.
Don't worry, I'll give you my best services for Ocean 4 Tango Happy.
This is definitely one of the trickier parts that took me a while. We had to like dissect each leg of the pattern for landing to get the speeds right here, and then it's really easy to mess up your speeds in the turns coming up. You know, especially when you turn from downwind to base, it's easy to let your nose drop, and when you do, you pick up a couple knots very quickly. You know, you'll be 5-10 knots fast just in like 2 seconds, and then you have to bleed that off. Or even worse, you know, end up getting slow, you know, so that's definitely a watch out. Alright, so we're in VR, we've got a really good view here, looking for the field, lining ourselves up. We're in a descent. A little slow. We don't really want to be slower than 65. And now we've got the sun right in our face here. It's not too bad, but we're going to roll into final. I'll be making CTAF calls for each of these legs. And there it is, there's the rudders. I could feel the left rudder wasn't right, so I took it out and kind of messed with it, and you saw the whole nose swing back and forth. So we've got some trees close to the departure end of the runway here. Gonna have to put in a little bit of power so we're not too low as we cross those. Pappies are looking good though.
Roger, reduce speed to 210, please, and turn additional 20 to the left.
A little high now, we had to end up being high because of the trees. Jogging back over to center line. And here's the magic part. This is the part I had so much trouble with. After the flare, trying to hold it above the runway and hold it and hold it and hold it. And not balloon, and not let it drop too soon and drop hard. And we nailed it right here. We is me. I am talking about myself in the third person, but that was really, that worked out nicely. I think my landings in the simulator have gotten better because of my landings in my flight lessons. Alright, so here we are. We'll taxi back at Plant City. This is also pay where I've landed at this aircraft before. Sorry, I've landed at this airport before in this channel. Really nice job on this airport as well. And we're going to pull it right up to the fuel pumps because I guess that 16-mile flight really drained our fuel tanks. This looks really good. I like all the detail. The little black banding you get there on the side as I turn my head is because I'm using Oculus Mirror to stitch the left and the right eye together. Alright, so we'll do the shutdown checklist. Turn off the avionics, get our lights off, get everything buttoned up here. Alright, that was a nice, short, fun virtual reality flight. Peter Knight seems like a cool place to fly out of, and you've got lots of options. There's lots of payware airports nearby. I might do a flight from here to Sarasota, which I also have as a payware airport, and that would also be a really cool one to do in virtual reality. So if you enjoy content like this, be sure to click that like button, leave me a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, as always, for flying along with me, and stay tuned for further flight adventures.